Thank you, Julie. Um, I think I'll start by just saying that my daily studio practice often begins with some visual interpretations that are influenced by this bizarre, surreal moment in time that we're all experiencing together. It's been pretty incredible. There's an ongoing series in my studio called My Abstracted Garden. It's turned out to be a really meaningful format for me and for my work at this time. And the piece that's at the new museum is related to this abstracted garden series. The piece is titled Quilt Constellation, and the subtitle is important: Finding My Way, Wandering a Lot. Says it all. Um, for me, the piece really addresses this passage of time during this past year where I have been so grateful for a balance found in this triangle of home, studio, and garden. And for me, through it all, nature really continues to be my anchor while making art during this pandemic. Nature is like smack in the middle of that triangle. So with this series, I've been creating these very ornate compositions that use a pattern-based topographical matrix, and they portray ideas about land, about our natural world. And for those of you who managed to see the piece in person, I don't know if the museum's open or not. I think it's not, but you've noticed that in addition to paint, I really like to use a lot of different types of materials, everything from fabric and yarn to fur and glitter, sometimes even little glass eyes or silk flowers. So they're really adorned with a lot of trim. Um, the pieces are usually simultaneously ordered and in disarray. And I also like that they have aspects that are both realistic and abstract. It just seems to speak to our lives today. Let's look at the next slide as I talk on a little bit. Um, and as you can see, my pieces have this tapestry-like format it's very dense, very haphazard, kind of a bit tangled. And there's a kind of a seemingly chaotic sense to the work. Um, the terrain in my pieces, they don't necessarily have a readable floor plan, but it's always teeming with a lot of activity and energy and bursting with color. And like our natural world and the ecosystems in our natural world, one pocket of activity in my paintings connects and entwines to the next. And I really love that process of connecting one zone or one area of a painting to the next. I mean, it really keeps me stable and grounded, especially at a time like this. So yeah, again, just nature continues to be that anchor. Um, I would say, and reflecting back on this past year, during all the ongoing sheltering in place and many isolated days, I noticed an increased cacophony in the work, if you can believe it. Let's go to the next slide. Um, there was definitely an attraction to these intense pinks and this neon orange. And I mean, I've used these colors in the past, but now they seemed in some cases to be holding center stage in such an intense way. Um, so I had to wonder at a certain point mid-year last year, is this bright pigment, is it suggesting that the heat of last year's fires, which several artists have noted already? I mean, it was such an awful, frightening experience. Um, or the sun through that oppressive smoke that just seemed to never go away, that frightening orange air, or is the intense pigment of visual emotion from all the social unrest? 2020 was just such a tumultuous year. I have to say, it just, you think back on all of it, and it's just astounding. Um, there's also for me been a scrabble of new patterns and textures that have showed up and now occur regularly in this abstracted garden series. Everything from herringbone pattern, which you can see in this piece, to these meditations on of dots and circles or cloud-like shapes or crosshatches and paisleys. So a lot of new, interesting developments in the studio, which has been wonderful. Um, and I would say, just kind of as a overarching statement about my work, that I'm really interested in this idea of conjoining imagery from our natural world along with man-made and constructed nature, man-made materials and constructed nature. So when I build an artwork and this nature-based imagery, it sometimes gets transformed until it's almost abstract. And I like that idea of combining these patterns that are found in our natural environment, but then they are combined with abstracted shape and form. Um, and for me, particularly at this time, this year has felt so quiet, because of the isolation and the sheltering in place and the separation. My focus has been on the very delicate, the very minute natural systems that are often unknown, unnoticed, unseen. But it's just given me much joy as well. So it's been gratifying to have that as an anchor, as I said. Yeah, so I think as an end note about my work, I would say that my work stems from just this personal curiosity about nature, about our human connection to it, and just an ongoing fascination with its immense power. Um, one of the questions that was asked is, what happens after the pandemic? What would we do? What do we want to do? And certainly I'm hopeful I can mount the solo show that was postponed back in April. So many of us had things planned that didn't come through. I would love to do more murals and public artwork. Right before COVID, I finished a 40-foot mural for Facebook for their new campus. And like Liz, I'm also working with the city of Palo Alto to produce a mural that's going to go up in a couple weeks in downtown. And the image that's on the screen now will be the image used for this temporary public art piece. But I have to say, on a personal note, the first order of business for me will be to get to Florida to see my folks who are in their mid-90s and hanging in there. And our son Tommy, who's 25 and in downtown LA in the thick of it, trying to run a business. And, just to visit with and hug friends and have dinner parties. Remember those? I mean, and then travel. So I look forward to the light at the end of this tunnel. I do want to end by thanking the new museum staff, the entire team, for all that you guys are doing right now to support the arts at this time. It's so incredibly important. Thank you, Craig Krull, for curating a wonderful exhibition and for including me in the show. It's an honor to be a part of this project. Thank you.